Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Opportunities to Overcome. I am Dr. Barbara Payne. Welcome back. So, we're talking about how we are protecting our image and we're not taking our identity back to God. Our image, we're using our image for ourselves and we're not letting God show us our identity in Him. So, because a lot of times, we get so caught up on fixing on the outside because man looks on the outside, as First Samuel 16 verse 7 says, we look so much on the outside, we don't look on the inside with God. Like we don't let God come in to fix our heart because He looks on the inside, our heart. Okay. So we need to get better with that because a lot of times we walk around fixing, the outside. I mentioned in a few videos back when I was talking about how I was using so much things to max who I am. And none of it worked. None of it worked when I was trying to max different things in my life, and not just with makeup and hair and things like that. I was using all kind of tangible things to try to max my what I was going through, because a lot of times there was times I was going through a lot and I was using the things to max it and not letting God come in, to show me my true identity. That even when you're going through, I could show you who you are, that you don't have to be mad at certain situations. You don't have to be react on, or you don't have to do certain things on certain situations, because I am God and I am your true identity. When God shows you his, who he is in you, that's your identity. Okay. So because some of us get so exhausted because we're not being obedient to God and we're not letting him come in to fix our hearts and our mind and renewing and transforming us to become better, but we be so caught up in maintaining that image, we start protecting it, and we protecting it with things and people and try to get applaud with people and things, and it's not working because a lot of times we live in a society that teaches us, a perception, that you got to be a certain way, you got to do a certain things to become, you know in a circle, or in or needed or wanted, or to become accepted. That's the word I'm looking for in society. And you don't, it's what God wants. That's all it should matter. Okay. Because a lot of times we go even on social media trains, that you have to be polished, you have to look perfect, and it's sad because I laughed because I was doing that. I was, you know, I would go back to my hair. I was fixing my hair to look so polished and so perfect that in the inside I was broken. So it wasn't working. Okay. So a lot of times, we're not letting God to develop our image, and he wants to, God does not want to just develop our image. He wants to form our identity back to him. But we don't give him that chance because we're so caught up with protecting. Oh, I gotta look perfect. No, when God made us, He said it was very good. But the enemy would trick you and reverse it and say, "Oh, no, that don't look right on you." As far as what God made, and that's a lie. Don't let the enemy trick you on something God made. In the beginning, in the Bible, He said it was very good how He made us. Let me tell you something. Image is a perception. It tricks you. It gives you a false, something, especially when we're doing it. I'm talking about when we're doing it, it gives us a false perception of how we see things. Okay. It says, how do I look? You asking people, how do I look? But did you ask God? It asks, how am I viewed? But did you ask God, how am I viewed? Then you ask, what do you think about me? But did you ask God, what do you think about me? See, a lot of times we go to others for approval or attention that we're not even asking God. God, do you want me to wear this today? It's so simple. And I know, I know, look, God is in the details. Okay. And sometimes just asking God gives some honor and praise because I want to glorify you, Father. So should I do this today or should I do certain things? Because or again, like I said, I go back to my hair. I was fighting with my hair, but that's not how God made me the way He is, the way I am. Okay, because if we so focus on the image, it's the external. We're so caught up of fixing the external that we're doing adjustments and it becomes fragile in our lives. So we have to stop breaking ourselves. Sometimes we break ourselves that don't that only God could break and change. Sometimes, do you ever notice if you try to change yourself, you can't do it because only God can change you. That's another thing that we need to talk about. A lot of times we're trying to change ourselves, only God can change. I was, like I said, I was broken since I was a teenager. Things happened to me, that things was taken from me, when I was growing up, and it started when I was young. So I was broken, and I was trying to use this image of trying to fix this brokenness and pasting this on and adjusting things, and it didn't work. It actually made it cost me more. It made me spend more money. It made me spend more time with people that didn't need to be in my life, that was broken too. 'Cause a lot of times, if you hanging with broken people and you're broken, you both become broken. And we're trying to change ourselves and we're not letting God change us. Image survives on compliments. It survives on, it survives on people trying to tell us what we should look, but we're not going back to God of what God says in 1 Samuel 16:7. He looks on the heart because the people evaluates image. God evaluates identity. Let me say that again. People evaluates images. God evaluates the heart, the identity, which starts with the heart. Okay? Once God cleans that heart and get that heart right, the identity goes back to Him. Okay? A lot of times we're so upset of, again, trying to change ourselves, we're not letting God change us, and we're working harder and trying to get people to see us. Let me tell you something. That's a mistake that many of us make for years. Okay? A lot of times God's coming. He's saying, I need you to come back home. I need you to come to me and let me change you. See, we put so much work in ourselves, we don't even oh, we don't even sit still and let God do the work for us. That's what we put so much on us. God could do majority of the work. He just asks us to trust Him. And whatever He wants us to do, He'll let us know. And most of the time it's trust. Trust Him. Okay. So we need to stop avoiding, sometimes we protect the energy and we get so drained on it that we avoid being wrong. We don't want to look weak. We don't want to admit to our mistakes. We don't want to be transparent. We don't want the transparency to come through us, because sometimes people say, oh, you look weak when you being honest, of the images, of trying to fix things, but you not fixing it. And we don't want to be honest with ourselves or others, because we don't want to look weak. We don't want to look like, something's wrong. A lot of times we're walking around like we're perfect and we're not. No one's perfect but Jesus. Okay? No one. Okay? Identity doesn't need to be defense. We use our identity to be so defensive. And identity needs to be developed through God. Sometimes our fear is exposed through trying to fix our identity. Do you ever notice that? That you get more fearful, meaning you spend more money, you spend more time where you don't need to be spending it at, and God's not getting no glory, and God's not getting no time, and God's not getting no. Okay, Father, can you develop me? Can you make me better? Don't waste your time trying to fix something you cannot fix. We can't. Again, we cannot fix ourselves. Only God can. Okay, and what becomes really serious is our growth. As we get older, our growth slows down, pride increases, and accountability weakens. And guess what? Humility disappears. We don't even ask God for nothing. We're just going on with life and don't even ask God to help us with nothing. Okay? So we have to stop that, because the more we do that, the more we are affecting the next generations. Okay? And the next generation seeing us fixing our identity and we're going wrong. And guess what? They're going wrong. And then we get upset when they go wrong because we thought we was right. We got to stop that, because we destroying the next generation. We destroying the next generation. Okay? When we're doing wrong. Our identity is not what we do. It's who God sees us as and what he wants to do. Okay? You know, let's go back to how Jesus portrayed his identity. In Philippians 2, verse 7, okay? Philippians 2, verse 7. It says, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Jesus was not, he didn't, he wasn't, look at me, see? He wasn't fixing on the outside. He was more in the inside. He was talking more in the inside. Okay? He wasn't using defense of his image. His ego wasn't out of like our egos. He was just being obedient to God. And that's it. That's all God wants to be, is obedient. Not what people think, not what we think, but what God thinks. He just wants us to be obedient. And that's what Jesus did. It says, he had no reputation. Okay? He made himself no reputation. Okay? So we have to be honest with ourselves and ask, do I fear being wrong? Do I fear being unaligned with God? Because God's gonna get me. See, a lot of times we don't want God's correction and alignment because we fear his correction. But to be honest, I'd rather take God's correction than the world's correction, because the world would take you out. God would give you, he would keep you, plain and simple. The world take you out, God would keep you. A lot of times we got to ask ourselves, do we need approval from people, or do I fear intimacy with God? Because a lot of times people don't even want to be intimate with God and be real with God. He knows us, but he wants to be real with him too. That's part of obedience. It's being honest. Part of our obedience is being honest with God. Okay? So we got to stop protecting and let God correct us, stretch us, expose us if He have to. Okay? Remove the pride, strengthen us into, our integrity, so our identity is built back in a private obedience. See, He'll do it privately. Okay? But His glory would come openly. Okay. Oh, it's funny how we build our image in the public, but God builds our identity in the private. One is temporarily and one is external. To God be the glory. You know, that's why I love God, because he teaches us in the private and expose his glory in the public. But we trying to fix our images is in the public, fixing our images. We gotta do better, y'all. We have to do better because images survives on attention. Identity survives on testing. Okay, God, we will be tested. Okay, images wants applause. Identity wants alignment. We have to be aligned with God. So stop protecting your image, okay? And let's start developing our identity with God. Because our identity with God will be more sustainable, more for his glory, you know. And I don't even want to use the word sustainable. Let's say for his glory, for God's glory. Because that's the ultimate goal, is for God to get the glory. Not our will, but thine will be done. God's will be done in our life. So let's invest more in God and less in us. More of you, Father, less of us. Okay? I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.